So you've made your great indie film, now you want to get it distributed. How do you find and choose the right distributor? That is a tricky process, and a lot of filmmakers get frustrated with that, but there is a way to do it, and that's what we're going to discuss today. If you want to be a successful indie filmmaker, you need to know a lot about not just the production of movies, but the business. We are going to tell you the truth and reality of what really happens in the indie film business. Hi everybody, welcome back to Indie Filmmaking Truth and Reality. I'm your host, Jeff Deverett, and today we're going to talk about how to find and choose the right distributor for your indie feature film. So distributors are basically people who are going to help you get your film released. I mean, that's what distribution is. Now, we use the word distributor, but we're also talking about agents, sometimes producers, reps, sometimes lawyers, but I use the word distributor to mean somebody who is going to represent your film in the release of the movie. All right, so it could be an agent. Now, let me just sort of debunk the difference between an agent and a distributor. And in a lot of cases, they're the same. An agent generally is somebody who's going to represent your film and find you a distributor, whereas a distributor is going to license your film from you and release your film, usually these days to streaming platforms. So the agent isn't necessarily going to release the film onto the platform. They're going to find you a distributor who's going to release the film. Now, these days, agents and distributors are sort of intertwined. It doesn't really matter what you call yourself. It's sort of the function that you're performing. An agent can release a film on a streaming platform. A distributor might find you another distributor. So it's just kind of what we call substance and form in the legal industry. It's not more or less what you say you are. It's what function you're performing. So a distributor is generally somebody who's going to license and release your film. So let's look for that. Let's say you're going to try to find a distributor. Now, where do you find these distributors? I mean, a lot of filmmakers start the basic way. They make their film and they just go on to Google and they push how to find a distributor, film distributor. And up come a whole bunch of podcasts and webcasts. Probably this one will come up after we publish it. And there's a lot of different people talking on YouTube about film distributors. There's even some film distribution companies who post their own videos and they pop up. So that's one way to find them. You could find, a handful of distributors just by Googling. Or you could say list of film distributors, and then lists will come up because there are published lists. Like, for example, there's a published list called The Film Catalog. It's called thefilmcatalog.com. It's a published list. It's done by, I think, the American Film Marketing Association. It's a whole bunch of distributors, several hundred of them, who are very active in the industry and represent films. So if you were to type that in, up would come a list, and you can type in the word companies. You filter by companies, and you see them all alphabetical. So now let's say you have this list, all right? So that's one way to find distributors, and I'll go through how to choose them in a second, all right? Another way would be to go to a film market, not a festival, a market. Let me explain the difference between a festival and a market. So a festival, as we talked about in a previous episode about film festivals, is a place that people go to celebrate their movies. You've made a film, now you want to air it in front of an audience, have a screening, Q&A, talk to other filmmakers. That's a festival. Distributors generally don't go to those. They only go to the big festivals, like the Sundances and the Cannes and the big festivals, the Torontos. A lot of distributors do not attend the smaller festivals. So you're generally not going to find distributors at a festival. Once in a while, they do a panel on distribution, then you'll find some distributors. But for the most part, if you go to a market, you'll find them. So a market is basically a business convention, like the American film market, where there's not a festival. It's not connected to a festival. It's basically a convention of industry professionals. These are people who are buying and selling films. So it would be distributors would be the people who are exhibiting, showing the films, and say streamers, TV people, theatrical people would be walking around. They'd be the patrons who are looking for the films. And we call it a market. It usually takes place in a convention center or a hotel. And the distributors would take the rooms or the booths, and the programmers from the various streaming platforms, whatever, the various countries from around the world would walk around and meet with these people, and they would say, here's what I have. Here's the films that I'm representing. Here's what I think would be good for your platform. Here's what I'm suggesting, and try to make a deal to license the films to these platforms. So these are called markets. They're way more expensive to attend than festivals. Like a festival you could attend for, I don't know, the cost of a screening, I guess. Whereas a market you have to register, usually $200 to $300 a day, or $1,500 for the week, or whatever, you're attending, the level that you're attending. So some of these markets are connected with festivals. Like for instance, the Cannes Film Festival also has a market component called Marché du Film. So if you see on television, you see the Cannes Festival with the big red carpet and all the stars getting out and the paparazzi and all that. That's the red carpet, the stairs leading up. This is in Cannes, France, this big convention center there. So half of that building is the festival. There's all the screening rooms there. The other half of the building, the other side you don't usually see on TV, or sometimes when they do a wide shot you see it. It's got all these posters decked out all around it, is the convention center. And that's where the business people go. If you register for the Cannes Film Festival, you don't go into the Marché du Film, which is the market, the Cannes Film Market. All the people who've registered for the Cannes Film Market, they transcend on Cannes at that same time. They do it side by side and do the deals on the films. They're talking, I have this film, they're horse trading. I've got this one, I've got this platform, who wants this film? And it's not like a bidding it's not like an auction. All right. It's a convention and they all have appointments. They converge for 4 or 5 days. They meet with each other. They talk. They have dinners. They have drinks. They have tons of meetings in the convention center, and they try to do business together on selling each other films and licensing them. That's a market. It's all distributors. The whole market is distributors and streaming platforms and programmers. Now, the other component there are filmmakers. So if you're a filmmaker, you can go to one of these markets. You'll have to pay. You have to pay, a hefty amount to attend. And you don't necessarily have to go for the whole thing, but you can go for 2 or 3 days if you want. And there's an opportunity to meet with distributors. You can certainly see what the distribution landscape is like. But I'm telling you, if you go to a market as a filmmaker and you're trying to meet distributors and or pitch them on your product, whether it's a film in development or a concept film or a finished film, you generally want to meet with them at the end of the market, not the beginning. In the first 2 or 3 days of a market, they're super busy trying to sell the films that they represent. And they're taking most of their meetings with the streamers and the international clientele in those 2 or 3 first days. In the 2 or 3 last days, they're going to have a little bit more time for you, especially the last day and the second last day. It's a little bit more relaxed. Hopefully they've done most of their business, and they'll have time to meet with filmmakers to talk about, because they're always on the lookout for new films, especially finished ones. So that's when you can meet with distributors in a market. But if you do this, you have to make appointments with them. Don't think you're going to walk around, knock on the door and say, hi, here I am. Once you register for a market, you're going to get access to the attendee list, and then you can make appointments in advance, which you definitely want to do. Now, warning to filmmakers who have never been to a film market, it can be a super intimidating experience the first time you go. So I strongly suggest don't go alone. Go with somebody else who can be your wing partner, who you can have moral support with. Hopefully 2 filmmakers, you go together, you both have a film, you're both learning, you can chat with each other. Because otherwise it can be very scary, intimidating. It's all business. This is not like going to a film festival where people want to talk to you about the crafting of your film and how pretty it is and everything. They just want to talk numbers. That's what distribution is. All right, it's deals, it's legal contracts and numbers. So you might not be used to that, but it's a great experience. And for all you filmmakers who haven't done it and have actually made an indie feature, I strongly suggest that you attend at least one market. And the big ones are the American Film Market in Los Angeles every year. It's in November. The Cannes Marché du Film we just talked about in May. There's Berlin, the European Film Market that takes place in Berlin in February. There's the Hong Kong Film Market. So there's a bunch of those are the 4 big ones, and there's other ones around the world. And there's a thing called MIPCOM, and MIPTV also takes place in France, in Cannes. So you check out the market that's probably most viable to you, maybe easiest to get to, or if you want to go to Cannes, just to check it out and experience the Cannes film market, then by all means go. It's just not cheap to do it. It's very expensive, but it's worthwhile. It's a great experience to understand what really goes on in film. Whether it be through a list or through a market or through both, all right, you've gotten the landscape of who the distributors are out there. And you want to, in order to choose a distributor, there's some criteria that I would use. Number 1, you want to choose a distributor who's active in the business. All right, you want to see that they probably are attending markets, because those distributors that attend markets are, they're spending money to go to the markets, and they're relatively active in the business if they're attending markets. So I think it's a good sign that these distributors are at the markets. That's one way to sort of decipher who's super active in the business. Because if they're not active, they might take your film and sit on it and not have a lot of activity on it. So I would choose somebody who's active. Number 2, I'm going to call choosing a distributor very similar to dating. All right. So you want to choose the right part. Like when you're dating, and let's say you're dating for marriage, you want to choose the right partner. So what's the criteria for choosing a right partner? It's sort of the same criteria for giving your baby, your movie, to a distributor. Here's the criteria. Number 1, and again, not in any particular order, but I would always put number 1 is this. You want to make sure you're dealing with people who you trust. Trust is the most important component of any business deal and any relationship. Now, how do you know you can trust them? How do you know they're honest? How do you know they're going to do what they say they're going to do? How do you know they're good at it? You got to check them out. All right. So that's kind of like, if you're going to get married, you want to marry someone you trust, you got to check them out. How do you check them out? Number 1, you start with going online. You go onto their website. Every distributor's got a website. You kind of see what kind of movies they're doing. Are they the right fit for you? Are they like, say you have a horror movie and they don't do any horror films. Chances are that's not going to be a good partner for you. They need to understand the genre you're working in. You want to, if you go on their website and you see their movies, you want to make sure that at least they have some movies, or hopefully a lot, have a similar genre of what you're having, what the movie you made, so they know how to talk about it and how to handle it. All right. Number 2, as I said, you want to make sure they're active. Are they going to markets? Do they have, their customer base? I mean, everybody sort of lies a little bit. They show you, they're dealing with all these major streamers and everything like that, which they're generally not, but you're going to ask about that. So now you're going to narrow it down based on, I feel like these guys are active. I feel like they're the right fit. I feel like they handle the right number of films. Their website looks good. They present themselves well. You look at their bios. You see what their history is, that kind of stuff. All right. And again, a lot of people lie. It's like dating, online dating. Everybody puts up a false picture and a false bio. Not everybody, but a lot of people do. Right. But now you whittle it down, and now you have, say, your top 10. All right. Even though there were, say, 50 that you started with. Well, let's say you do start with 50. All right. Now you're going to send them your movie, or if you have a trailer or a concept reel or a script, but let's say it's a finished film. All right, you're going to send an email to each of them, these 50 that you have identified as being what appears to be the right fit, either by meeting them in a market or checking them out on a list and going online onto their website. So you've narrowed it down to 50, because there's hundreds of them also. All right. And some of it's location. Maybe you want to deal with somebody who's local to you. Maybe you want to deal with somebody who's in the United States if you're domestic, if you live in the United States or whatever. All right. Now you're going to check them out. Basically, you're going to send them your movie with a nice email, an attachment with hopefully you have a promo, or maybe you send the movie and say, hi, brand new filmmaker, made this great film. I checked you out. You look like you could be the right fit for it. Can you take a look? Tell me if you think I'm the right fit for you. And it's better if you send them a trailer link as opposed to the movie. But if you only have the movie, you haven't cut a trailer, then that's fine. Of those 50, 30 of them you're not going to hear back from. They're going to ghost you, as though you didn't even send an email. You're going to send one more follow-up email. It's going to be short and sweet. They're just going to ghost you. That's the way the business works. They're going to ghost you. They're not going to ever respond back. It's almost like, did it get through? Like, I didn't get like an error message like their website doesn't. Welcome to the film business, folks. I hate to say it, but it's true. So 20 will get back to you. 10 of them will say, hey, it's not for us. Thank you very much. Thanks for submitting it. We appreciate it. We took a look at the, first 10 minutes. It's not our kind of movie, but good luck to you. So now you're down to 10. Okay, of those 10, they'll all say, okay, well, some of them will say, send me the movie, or we need to watch it a little bit more. We saw, what are you looking for, blah, blah, blah. And you don't know what you're looking for. You're looking for a good distributor. Then it's going to get down to getting an offer. All right. So you're going to say, I'm looking for a good distributor. I want this, this, and this. So at that point, basically 3 more are going to drop out. They're never going to send you an offer. They're curious about you, but they're not going to follow up. So now you're down to, say, 7. All right. Then each of them send you their standard deal memo. you realize that the standard deal memo is basically completely skewed in their favor. Everything leans towards them. They're going to make the money, you're not. There's going to be like 10-year terms and restrictive costs and all this kind of stuff. Of that, you're going to eliminate half of them because you're going to say, I can't deal with these terms. So now you're going to be down to say 3. And of the 3, the final check, and you're saying, okay, this feels like the right company, feels like the right deal terms, feels like we can do business, feels like they're motivated, they like my movie, I like them. The final check is you go back on their website, you look at their movies, and now you look at the actual movies and the credits of who made the movie. You find the producer, choose 3 or 4 movies, you find the producer, you go into IMDb, and you find the contact information for that producer, and you call her up, or you send her an email, or you call her up and you say, hi, my name's Jeff Deverett. I'm a filmmaker. I just made this film and I'm thinking of dealing with, ABC Distribution. I see that they are handling your film. Can you just spend a minute or 2 with me and tell me, were they a good distributor? Did they get the job done? Did they pay you on time? Did they pay you anything? Did you make any money? Can you just give me a recommendation? Because, I had to struggle to figure this out. And a filmmaker generally will do that for you. They'll give you a reference. They'll tell you the truth because they know what it's like to be you. So you get 3 or 4 or 2 or 3 references of filmmakers of films that this company is representing, then you'll get the honest truth about what's really going on with the company. That's kind of like getting the final reference check on a date. You met somebody, now a friend is going to say, oh, I know this person, she's really great or whatever. So that's the way to do it. Once you kind of get the warm and cozy feeling that everything checks out, it might not be the perfect relationship, but at least you've checked them out. But that reference from the other filmmaker, and sometimes, other filmmakers aren't available or don't want to talk about it, but usually they do because they know what it was like to go through that process because they went through that process. All right. And they understand what it's like to be an indie filmmaker, the struggle. So they're going to share that with you. So that's the best reference. And then the rest is just negotiating the right deal. Now, even though they sent you a deal memo, it doesn't mean you have to accept it. You got to go through the motions and tweak it a little bit to make sure that it's fair. But that's how you find a distributor who is hopefully going to work out and get the job done for you. As always, you want more information, have any questions, just connect with me through the link below or send me an email, jdeverett@deverettmedia.com. Look forward to hearing from you. Good luck.